Keeping up with the Joneses is not important. It's just not. It's Amanda with Eat, Pray, Crunch, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about our financial philosophy, I guess you could call it. I have seen so many amazing, awesome YouTubers out there, a lot of them whom I am subscribed to, who talk a lot about the whole Dave Ramsey program and living a debt-free lifestyle, you know, all of the debt snowball, like all of the steps that you go through to get out of debt, and just getting into a healthy relationship with money. And it's just really inspired me to want to talk about what our philosophy on money is. So let me just start out by saying that I think that the whole Dave Ramsey debt-free program is incredible, and I think that it has such an important place, especially in our consumerist society, especially in the United States. I know that it's in, you know, other first world countries as well, that consumerism is a problem, living in debt is a problem, having a ton of, you know, student debt, credit card debt, that kind of thing is a real problem. It's a symptom of living in a wealthy, abundant culture, and along with that comes a very materialistic and consumerism-based mindset. A lot of the Dave Ramsey principles, Bill and I are very on board with, and a lot of these things we basically have been doing all of our lives, even before we knew who Dave Ramsey was, but we do not, you know, per se follow, you know, we haven't done a Financial Peace University workshop. We have never done any of the Dave Ramsey programs. So I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that. So the way we view money is very much a Dave Ramsey-like philosophy. We very much believe in not living in debt, living within your means, you know, not spending more money than you have. We believe it's really important to have an emergency fund. It's important to have savings. It's important to spend your money wisely and know where your money is going. We are very much on board with those things. However, we personally don't feel like we need to have that very rigid structure to help us maintain a healthy relationship with money, if that makes sense. Both Bill and I are very frugal by nature. We both come from families that are extremely frugal. I have a lot of Scottish in me. It's just, you know, it's kind of a Scottish value. I think it's just part of my personality to just kind of be conservative with money, and I was very much raised that way. When I was a kid, I got an allowance for doing my chores, and half of it had to go into a savings account that my parents opened for me at the bank. My parents taught me about saving right from the get-go. You know, we never had super extravagant stuff in our house. Like, we were a pretty middle-class family, but like we never had the latest anything. And it always annoyed me so much as a kid. Even when I was a little kid, I remember getting our first VCR. Like I think we must have gotten ours in like the early 90s. And VCRs had been around for a decade before that. My parents didn't get one until then. And then getting into the 90s, everybody had a CD player. My parents never got a CD player. Eventually, when I was in high school, they got me a boombox that had a CD player, and that was the only CD player we had in the house. My parents didn't have, you know, the latest and greatest furniture. Like, we had just a bunch of like old furniture around the house. We didn't remodel our house that was built in the 70s and very much 70s, had 70s colors, like, you know, orange shag carpet, that kind of thing. My parents didn't remodel and change some of that stuff until like the year 2000, you know, so my parents were definitely not in a hurry to keep up with the Joneses, and I am so thankful for that now. I am so thankful that my parents really instilled in me that life is not about material stuff, and that has really stuck with me. And I'm not sure if it's because of my nature or because of the nurture I had growing up, but like, of the love languages, gifts is my very, very lowest love language. And that's not to say that like having gifts be your highest love language is a bad thing. That's just kind of the effect that it had on me. And same with Bill. Gifts is also his lowest love language, so that works out pretty well for us. I mean, we get gifts for each other at holidays and that kind of thing, but it's just not that big of a deal to us. He was also raised in a very frugal family. He had to earn his money for his chores. If he didn't do his chores, he didn't get his allowance. He was really into Legos as a kid. If he wanted to get a Lego set, he had to pay for it himself. So he would save and save and save for months and months, and they would go, and once he had saved enough, he would go buy that Lego set that he really wanted. So we're both just very frugal by nature and just kind of do a lot of these Dave Ramsey principles anyway, because they are values that we grew up with and think that they are really important values. Because we both came from families that were, you know, very frugally minded, we're very fortunate to come out of school without any student debt. Well, I take that back. My parents had me pay for a small portion of my college, which I am still paying to them now, but that's like the only debt that we have outside of our mortgage. But other than that, we both managed to make it through college with basically no student debt. The debt to my parents is not like a formal loan, you know what I'm saying? And that will actually be fully paid off very soon. So when we entered our marriage, we actually basically came into our marriage debt free. Bill owned a house when we got married, and so that was our only debt. And so that's very Dave Ramsey, having your only debt be your house and having a house that is well within your means, that you're not having to like scramble to make your mortgage payment every month. It's, you know, a comfortable payment. And that was true when we moved into our house. Now we bought a house that was well within our means. We knew that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. One of the main reasons being financial. With the kind of career I had as a massage therapist, it would not have been enough money to cover childcare costs, and that was just something I wanted to do anyway, was to be a stay-at-home mom. So the house that we live in now, we bought based just on Bill's income. Even if I worked full-time later, we still wanted to have our mortgage based on one income. And that has really helped us stay within our means, and extra income I get is bonus income now. And we're not depending on my income to meet our basic needs. So that's, you know, another thing that we do that's very Dave Ramsey. Before my husband and I met, when he was still single, actually, you know, he's 6 years older than me, so he's had like a little bit of a financial jump start, which is awesome. That was one thing that I thought was totally awesome when I met him. But he had made investments in his early 20s, and so that was a really smart financial move as well, because the earlier you start, the more it grows over time. The bigger advantage you have the earlier you start with investments. So that gives us a lot of financial cushion. We constantly have a well-cushioned savings account. So if anything catastrophic were to happen, we have that emergency fund, we have that cushion, and we are planning on opening up college savings accounts for our kids very soon as well. So that's kind of the basis for the big financial things in our lives. We just got off to a very solid start, and we very much believe in those principles and have been making a point to stick with those. In terms of lifestyle, this is where we differ from Dave Ramsey a little bit. Just because we are both very frugal by nature and in our lifestyle, we feel like we don't need to be excessively rigid about our budget, because we just have this way of living that is so well within our means that we feel like we don't need to nitpick about it. And for us, I feel that because we have a healthy relationship with money, I feel like we're okay having a little bit of wiggle room there. And it's just a little bit more relaxed for us that way. We don't really do cash for everything. I know that's a Dave Ramsey thing. That's something we don't do. I mean, we do carry cash around, and use it for like small purchases and that kind of thing. But we do have credit cards. We have 2 credit cards. And so those are the only ones that we have, but we think there is a benefit to actually having credit cards, and that you build your credit with them, which has really helped in our process of buying our house, in buying our car, that kind of thing. While we still believe in living within our means, we do use a credit card, but we pay it off every month. We never, ever, ever, ever have a running balance on our credit card. I think there actually only was one time that we have ever had a balance on our credit card, and that was when we purchased our car. I'll actually have my car review linked here and which car we bought and why. We bought it used, but it's still the nicest car that we've ever had, and we were able to pay basically cash for it, and one credit card payment which we then paid off the next month. So within 2 months, we basically paid cash for our car. And at the time, it was just a 2 or 3 year old car. So it was basically new to us car. And we were able to pay it in full. So we don't have any car payment. You've watched all my videos. Almost everything that we buy is used. So that's just kind of like our lifestyle. We don't budget per se certain amounts of money that will go into each category every month, but we just have a frugal lifestyle. So, you know, almost all of our clothes that we buy, I get secondhand. Almost all of the baby gear that I have ever bought has been secondhand or hand-me-downs, you know, that kind of thing. If you want to see my full Living Within Your Means playlist, I will put that here, where I've done a lot of hauls showing how I've gotten things used and for free, really cheap, that kind of thing. That's just how we buy everything. Like almost all of our furniture is secondhand. That's just our way of life. And so because we live that way, we have a little more wiggle room. So every once in a while, if we want to make an impulse purchase, we do. Like, I buy things off Amazon sometimes for the kids. Like, I bought them a slide the other day. You know, in the summertime, we really needed one of those like pop-up tent shade things from when we were going out to the beach. So I just went on Amazon and bought one, you know. So, you know, I do make impulse purchases sometimes, but I don't feel guilty about it, and it's not a financial problem for us because the vast majority of the time we are living so well within our means that when we splurge every now and then, we have room to do that. And I think that's just mentally healthy for us to not be so rigid about it that we feel like we can't buy anything we want. The vast majority of the time, you know, we are only buying things we need, but we do buy things we want every once in a while, and I feel like that's fine, you know. We're not going in debt to do it, not even close. I should probably mention food too, because as you guys know, we are very much into a real food, organic, you know, whole foods based diet. I have a whole playlist on that here that I'll put in here as well. But that is probably one of our biggest costs. I mean, aside from our mortgage payment and utilities and that kind of thing, food is definitely a major cost in our household. And we feel like that is one thing in our lives that we are willing to spend more money on. You know, people ask, how can you spend that much money on food? I'm like, well, we are spending more money on food than a lot of people do, but we're also not spending a lot of money on what a lot of people do spend money on. And so in the grand scheme of things, we're still overall probably spending a lot less money than most Americans, even though we have a high grocery bill. That's just kind of a value judgment that we have made. We feel like paying more for healthy food is an investment in our health, and we won't have to pay in medical bills later on, if you know what I mean. And it's preventative, it's just helping keep us and our children healthy, and that is important to us. So like I said, because we have that financial wiggle room, we feel like food is something that we can spend more money on. Even with spending this much more on money, we are still well easily within our means because we are spending so little money on everything else. So really for us, it's a matter of priorities. So that kind of answers the question, how do you afford organic, real food? And for us, that's how we do it. That's kind of the long and the short of it. I just kind of have a moderate view on most things in life. You know, some things more than others, but most things I just have a very moderate view. Bill has come up with a really good analogy that Dave Ramsey programs are kind of analogous to Weight Watchers. If you are really struggling with your relationship with money and are in a lot of debt, then highly recommend doing a Dave Ramsey program because it really gets you into healthier habits, kind of like Weight Watchers does. You know, it gives you that rigid structure that you need to get you there. But I feel like once you're there, at least for us, I feel like it's not necessary to keep it that rigid. And so that's kind of our philosophy. You know, make really smart financial large purchases. Buy things with cash if you can, you know, buy your car used, buy everything else used if you can. Just live well within your means, buy a house that's within your means. Keeping up with the Joneses is not important. It's just not. But, you know, if you have that healthy relationship with money, then for us, we feel like it's okay to relax about it a little bit as well, and that it's healthy. I made a whole video about the 80-20 rule with food. I'll link that here if you haven't seen it. But the idea is that 80% of the time you eat really healthy food, and the other 20% of the time you don't worry about it that much. And I would even say that with food we do like 90-10. And I'd say that that's kind of how it is with our finances as well. 90% of the time, like, we're pretty rigid and whatnot, but 10% of the time we just don't worry about it. We make bigger purchases, we make impulse buys, that kind of thing. But it's not so much that affects us living outside of our means, or that we never dip into savings, we never go into credit card debt to purchase those things. As long as it's very much within reason, I think it's also healthy to just have a balanced view about it. Generally really live within your means, but don't be too rigid about it. At least that is what's really working for us. I think that just because frugality is kind of our nature, that works for us. But if you're the kind of person who is an impulsive spender, then maybe the way we operate wouldn't work so well for you. Maybe you need that structure more. I just wanted to talk about that. I've been wanting to talk about this for such a long time. Having a healthy relationship with money and living within your means is something that we value so much. It is something that we are passionate about, but I also think it's important to have a healthy mentality around it as well, a balanced mentality. So anyway, I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and tell me in the comments below, like, what is your relationship with money? Have you done a Dave Ramsey program? Have you gotten out of debt that way? I would love to hear your stories because I think it's such an important thing to talk about. While it's not the be all and end all, it's still an important part of our lives and we need to be stewards of it. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.